Have you ever wondered why you keep doing things that harm you even though you know better? Why do you procrastinate even though it only increases the stress? And why do you panic for no apparent reason? Why do you keep struggling with the same problems over and over again even though you're determined to change something? I'm Henrik, a clinical and neurocognitive psychologist, and I help trauma and scapegoat survivors to find their way in life. And in this video, I will show you why what you see as a problem is often perceived by your subconscious mind as the best potential solution in that particular moment. It may not be the best solution, but it is the only one currently available to you. Our subconscious is not designed to provide us with a pleasant or fulfilling life. Its primary purpose is to ensure survival. And this doesn't always mean physical, but also and foremost psychological survival. So from this perspective, we can better understand many of the symptoms and behaviors that bother us. They are simply unconscious attempts to protect us. So for this video, let's focus on 4 common experiences that many of us find rather annoying or problematic. And even though we know these reactions and behaviors harm us, we often find it hard to change or let go of them. Let's talk about procrastination, for instance. Many people think that procrastination is just pure laziness. But why do we really put things off? Well, there are many reasons for this, and chronic procrastination usually has highly individual causes. One reason could be that we are afraid of change. Change brings uncertainty, and uncertainty can be dangerous. By putting things off, we stay in a familiar state, even if that state is not making us feel well. Another reason could be that we protect ourselves from potential rejection. By not starting at all, we don't expose ourselves to the possibility that the results of our action might be not good enough, and that as a consequence we might experience rejection. Another example could be that we simply overwhelmed. The task ahead may seem so complex, so big, and we feel helpless, that our subconscious signals it's safer to do nothing. However, there's an even deeper level to this. Sometimes we procrastinate because we are afraid of our own success. On a conscious level, most people would say and agree on things like, yes, I want to be successful in life. But our subconscious can react differently. Success can bring emotional energies that are unfamiliar to us and that we are not used to feel. And these potentially positive but also intense feelings can be so overwhelming, especially if we are used to feeling rather bad, that our subconscious avoids them. This can even go so far as to involve deep loyalties, for instance, to our family of origin. So if we would become successful, we might stray from the values or status of our family. And this unconscious loyalty can then lead us to avoid our own success in order to continue belonging and not to endanger our place in the group. So this then creates a kind of success break in the form of procrastination. So from the subconscious perspective, all these reasons are logical and understandable, and people with chronic procrastination might secretly benefit from it. Or take the example of being late. Maybe you know someone, or maybe you are that person, who always reliably arrives 5 minutes late. From the outside, this may seem unreliable, but from the person's perspective, it's a form of control. It's not about being chaotic and sometimes being 5, sometimes 10, or even 20 minutes late. No, it's about being precisely 5 minutes late. And why is that? This small delay can increase the feeling of control and autonomy in a person. Often, such people have experienced restrictions or strict rules during their upbringing, for instance, in their childhood and adolescence. So they may have constantly felt harassed or controlled. And in adulthood, they have this mechanism to regain autonomy and control in a subtle way. So whenever they are confronted with fixed appointments, an inner resistance shows up, and through this 5-minute delay, they again achieve a psychological balance and maintain the feeling of self-determination. So here, the symptom of being late is the restoration or the psychological need for self-determination. Of course, this mechanism, as can be easily seen in this example, is actually no longer needed, but it is still active. Let's consider the example of panic attacks next. Panic attacks affect many people and can have various causes. They often occur in traumatized individuals, but also in those less severely traumatized. And if, for example, a person lives with anxiety and panic for years, this of course becomes part of their everyday life. So the anxiety dominates daily life and thereby, in a way, provides a structure. Of course, the person consciously wishes for nothing more than for the fear and panic to disappear, but on an unconscious, even deeper level, this may also offer a sense of security. This may sound paradoxical, but fear creates safety. This is even one of the evolutionary functions of fear, to create a safe space. And for many who have long dealt with anxiety, familiar fear creates a known life reality. So as I said in the beginning, the psyche is programmed to ensure survival, both physical and psychologically. And psychological survival often means to maintain a stable identity. So panic attacks can persist because they help maintain a sense of, that's just how I am. That's just who I am. So even if the original traumas have long been processed and diffused, panic attacks can continue to occur because they have almost become part of the person's identity. So this shows that even obvious problems like panic attacks can be an attempt by the psyche to maintain a familiar state and thus provide us with security or safety. And this mechanism is, of course, not always the only reason for persisting states of anxiety and for chronic anxiety and panic disorders, but it is often an overlooked aspect that shows how deeply the role of our subconscious is involved in the experience of anxiety. Finally, let's look at one last example of a mechanism that too many people know. Maybe you too. Let's look at the example of perfectionism. Many people subconsciously think that they need to be perfect to be accepted and to be loved. And perfectionism is something people adopt early in life and which tends to remain a lifelong companion for most. So often people are even proud of it, saying things like, sorry, I'm just a perfectionist, and almost brag about it. But perfectionism is just nothing more than an old survival mechanism, old strategy to gain recognition and acceptance. And this strategy potentially leads people to exhaust themselves extremely in their activities, exposing themselves to enormous stress. So they hope that their efforts will bring them the recognition they crave. The constant fear of not being good enough pushes them to their limits until they ignore their own needs and eventually break down. So perfectionism was once a solution to gain acceptance, but today it is potentially a mechanism of self-destruction. Burnout, for instance, is a typical outcome for which perfectionism forms the basis. And the problem with perfectionism in today's society is that it is so widespread and so socially accepted because so many people adopted this coping mechanism. So as a perfectionist, I often receive recognition even in adulthood. So in a way, this mechanism still works, but at the potential cost of wearing oneself out and sacrificing oneself. So now it's your turn. Is there a behavior in your life that keeps causing you problems? Something you would like to change, but it seems like you can't stop doing it? Then ask yourself this question. What benefit does this behavior bring me? There must be a benefit, otherwise you wouldn't keep doing it. For instance, what short-term feeling is avoided by this reaction? And what have you experienced in the past that made this behavior seem reasonable? Your subconscious may have good reasons and good intentions for making you act this way. So understand these reasons and you can begin to make new, more conscious decisions. In most cases, your symptoms and unwanted behaviors have one of the following intentions. Number 1, avoiding unpleasant feelings that are temporarily avoided by the symptom, by the problem. Number 2, maintaining a stable identity. Number 3, maintaining control and autonomy, or rather self-determination. And lastly, maintaining stable relationship with people who are important to you or were important to you in the past. Of course, this list is not exhaustive, but these are the most common patterns I observe in clients, and it is important to recognize that your unwanted behavior or symptom will be difficult or almost impossible to change as long as the underlying conflict is not resolved. As I've tried to show in this video, the problem is often the solution, the best potential solution at hand in that particular moment for a still existing conflict. Only when you have understood this conflict, your symptom can truly change. Of course, you might see some short-term progress, but the same problem is likely to resurface later or manifest in a different form unless you have uncovered the internal conflict. So ask yourself, what benefit does this behavior bring me so far? If you find the answers on this, you will gain a better understanding of your symptom and the unwanted behavior pattern. And with this understanding, you can then start to resolve the conflict and bring about real lasting change. All right, I hope this helped a bit. If you have any questions or would like to share your experiences, feel free to write them down in the comments. And remember, your symptoms are not just problems, they are unconscious solutions. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.